What is up, sexy people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from hardcore metalcore legends Deadguy.
He's literally answered the first question.
Okay. The band's new album, Near Death Travel Services, will be released on June 27th via Relapse Records. Deadguy return after 30 years.
It's been 30 years.
30 years. With their sophomore LP, Near Death Travel Services. That's right. After
Chinese democracy, hold my beer.
After reuniting on stage to prove that a few decades of dust couldn't keep them from tearing into audiences like old times, Deadguy innately understood how heavy and deranged a new album would need to be, and that's exactly what they delivered. A deserved follow-up to the highly influential, Hall of Fame-worthy Fixation on a Co-Worker debut, Near Death Travel Services tears into 11 tracks with the same confidence and palpable fury of its predecessor. Instead of moving away from their sound, Deadguy dug in deeper, expanding their songs and giving vocalist Tim Singer, what do you mean called Tim Singer? You're not a vocalist, I mean...
What do you do in the band? Drummer.
More room to, again, show why he's been one of the best vocalists in extreme music since the first Bush administration. A young singer ranted about the greed and cruelty that affected him and his friends, but now as a father, sees this bleaker modern day testing his children. The sky is falling, it's landing on us, he warns, in The Alarmist. In the Forever People, he demands, you pick your gods, pick your side, we're selling tickets for the end of time. And yet all of this still retains his darkly comic humour, the sense that he is screaming along with us at the absurdity in front of our eyes. Drummer Dave Rosenberg led the charge on the album's songwriting, learning guitar and writing a mountain of riffs in that time.
Fucking drummers. It's always drummers, isn't it?
Great.
Can't just look, I've got 17 different things I have to set up. Oh, by the way, I'll just play guitar as well. Fucking talented bastards.
Sure are. While he cites influences that range from surprising to no fucking way, Rosenberg admits that there is something that happens when these riffs reach the rest of the band. What Chris Guitar has always said is that this is just what it sounds like when we play together. Near Death Travel Services title is an inside joke, the band reflecting on touring and playing this music when they're ostensibly past their prime. But there are no signs of this being a swan song, no winding down, no taking it easy or resting on their laurels. How were they able to pull it off? Maybe some egghead professor of musicology can figure that out. But for the rest of us, it's best to just gratefully sit back and enjoy the massacre. The album was produced by Steve Evetts, who was also produced the band's debut album. This time, though, the album was mastered by the legend that is Brad Boatwright.
We love you, Brad, but imagine being the record producer from 30 years ago and these guys come in, you're like... Something familiar here. Like, remember you recorded an album last year? 30 years ago.
30 years.
Oh.
Okay, so, yeah. First album in 30 years. Had one previous album that came out in 1995, which was basically like that sweet spot for mid to late 90s hardcore.
Oh, yeah, I mean, couldn't have picked a better time to be a band in that genre then.
Like if you think about 95, you're talking like Propane and Biohazard and Madball and Downset.
Look at the glint in his eyes, ladies and gents.
Like, and they were like those albums they were dropping at that point were that are kind of now looked upon as like classics.
Yeah.
Fixation on a Co-Worker was also one of those albums that seemed to stand the test of time.
So, look, you are the hardcore fan back then. 95, I was transitioning out of Spice Girls into... I joke, I kid. 95 was the year before I like fully embraced metal leanings. So, like, we were on the cusp here. I would be listening to punk and metal at friends' house, but like have owned an album, or it was all mixtapes back then, and we were not my clique of friends were not a hardcore like a hardcore group at all, or even a punk group. Grunge, 80s rock and kind of thrash. Like the 80s thrash that was kind of transitioning. I think the heaviest thing anyone had was that first Machine Head album. So it was a transition there, but that whole thing didn't really exist in my consciousness until I met you fucking 5 years after that. So Deadguy, you were the formative guy at that time. Aware of the debut, had heard of it before?
So I was, what age was I? I was 15 when I joined my first punk band. And it was those guys who kind of started to get me into like Propane and Madball and stuff. So Deadguy probably came slightly after that. I didn't hear them in 95. It'd probably be 96, 97 by the time I got to Deadguy. But I was well aware of the band. And
so has this been an anomaly for you in that you had heard of the band and then nothing about the band after that?
Yeah, pretty much. Nothing for for years. Basically. They've obviously did a kind of reunion show not that long ago, and it's kind of obviously sparked that love again, and wanting to get back into playing and writing. And so, I was extremely excited when I heard there was going to be a new Deadguy album, because this is a band that were if you go back to that debut, it's all about aggression and intensity. This is not a band that were peppering their music with sing-along choruses or uplifting melodies. This was, that album was 30 minutes of unbridled rage and, angular dissonance. Just a very authentic hardcore record. I seen that they did it in a really clever way, because they kind of had this balance. They've always had a kind of balance to them where they kind of move between hardcore and metalcore, and they did it on the debut as well. And they never went too heavy on either side, so it was they were kind of the best of both worlds almost. Fans of both could get into Deadguy. There was this kind of middle ground where they sat. Obviously now we're 30 years later, so some things have changed, but Deadguy have somehow managed to create a follow-up album that sounds like the natural progression from Fixation of a Coworker.
Think about how many bands we've talked about over the COVID period there that kind of reformed after not doing anything for 6 years or something. You're like, that kind of feels like they've just not been listening to anything in 6 years. You're it kind of weirdly feels like a out of place time capsule. Where you kind of I don't know if this music works now. And that was the question I had for you, was how many albums does this band have? Because it sounds very accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is, you can hear age in them.
Yep.
But specifically, I want to know how old the band were, because this still feels fucking fresh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now this feels fresh. So
yeah, absolutely. For me, this one, the kind of style and the tone of it still reeks of that kind of late 90s era. Even the production's got a bit of that kind of essence to it. A lot of those albums, had that kind of tone to it. But to be honest, when you think about it, Steve Evetts produced most of those bands back in the day. He did one of my favorite hardcore albums of all time. Satisfaction is the Death of Desire by Hatebreed, which came out in 97, is just still to this day one of my favorite hardcore albums. But he's done stuff with Dillinger, Sepultura, Skin Lab. What was the other ones he did? Sick of It All. He mixed, after Ross Robinson obviously recorded it, Everything You Ever Want to Know About Silence by Glassjaw. He mixed that album. So this guy is he's top tier veteran producer. So that comes across massively on this release. It is super punchy, really good clarity in the guitars and the drums. Vocals are just really well balanced in the mix, but most importantly, and this is that with whatever he does, there's a ton of character to it. And that's like, for me, that's something that kind of sits above everything else. Like, you can have the best recorded and produced album in the world, but if it's totally soulless, then all that
What's
means
the point?
nothing, basically.
Yeah. Perfume on a pig, Dave. Perfume on a pig.
Exactly. And this has just so much personality to it. I love the fact that he's captured that time period, but also given it the punch and the weight of something that is current as well. I absolutely love the production on this. Like, Steve Evetts and Brad Boatwright coming together is the stuff dreams are made of. And we got it in 2025, ladies and gents. Musically, this is most definitely a Deadguy album. This has all the kind of the rage and the chaos of that debut. It does not hold back like one iota. But what I think they've done here is they've kind of tailored the guitars to be a touch more riff heavy, is what I'd say. If you go back to that debut, it had a lot of, obviously there was hardcore, there was metalcore, but it had like little bits of kind of noise rock and almost a kind of like mathcore kind of type discordance to it, where it just got really like twisted and really kind of caustic sounding. This album still touches on that, but you can hear little hints of like Unsane or Today's the Day breaking through in the guitar parts. But I'd say they've pulled back just the levels of that a little bit, and made this much more metallic and just more kind of ugly with the riffs. I was getting like a touch of like bands like Turmoil, like Botch, Converge, some early Vision Disorder as well, and some of the slower kind of chuggy parts, and it makes this album sound so much meaner. Some of the grooves on this are absolutely punishing, and they don't do the predictable thing of keeping those big parts to the end of a song. A lot of bands would build up to those moments and give you the payoff at the end, but Deadguy are quite happy to give you 2 or 3 sections of that during the track, where they'll strip out that like kind of complexity and just give it to you as heavy as possible. And it's when they move into those moments, it's so good. There's a bit of at the end of a New Best Friend, where the riff is kind of repeating itself, and Tim is just like roaring over the top of it, but it has this like almost kind of like Slayer-esque kind of lead that sits amongst it at the same time. It sounds epic on that track. I thought it was awesome, and they've kind of made sure this album runs very much like a live set almost. There's no downtime, there's no interludes. It's an album that just constantly drives forward. The momentum just actually continues to grow as the album goes on. There's plenty of switches and variety and rhythm and tempo that just will keep you engaged. And there's no like kind of typical mid-album breather track, but they do give you an almost kind of like Deadguy version of that on War with Strangers. That one's slightly, it builds up slightly slower. It's got this kind of sludgy kind of tempo and energy. But it's a clever way of kind of keeping the heaviness of the album up high, but that dip in tempo makes you feel like you've had a break of some sort. They also perfectly pair that track up with Knife Sharpener, which is...
It's a great name for a song.
Yeah, and it's exactly how it sounds. Like, it is like metallic and it's venomous and just angry as fuck. Speaking of angry, Tim's vocal performance on this, like, what the fuck?
Do we know if he's been doing anything in between? He must have.
It has to have been. Like,
there's no 30. Like, let's put it this way. It's been what, decade and a bit since I did vocals. Every now and again, I'll be driving on a motorway and I'm singing like an album that I used to be able to like do the easiest fucking scream or the easiest roar, and it will take like half an hour of that album playing me trying before I kind of get semi-warmed up to be able to do half of what I could do then. So the fact that he can slip into... I suppose it's in the name for him, but you know what I mean? Like, he's clearly... I don't know what he sounded like before, but he sounds fucking awesome on this. Yeah, he sounds like a guy that hasn't stopped screaming since 1995, to be honest. Like, but I actually think he sounds better now than he did 30 years ago. I thought the vocal on this had
more authority. I thought his tone was killer on this release, and he has this kind of, his style is it's like an agonizing kind of roar that he has, that just, it brings so much.
Hardcore vocalists age well.
Yeah, they do.
Their sounds really, when you think about other genres, most metal vocalists, I think it's cause of range. Over time, your voice gets deeper naturally.
Yeah.
Unless you're filling Thermal, where like the deepness in your voice just makes you sound like better than you did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But like hardcore, for whatever is that, I think it's because their tone sits more nominally within that mid-range. As a result, you grow more into that. You get more comfortable with your mid-range the older you get vocally. But as a result, almost every hardcore band, if you listen to their vocalist 20, 30 years on, like that, they're turning in some of the best performances I've ever fucking done.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's because of that.
Yeah, he just brings so much heat to these tracks. I love just his delivery on this is fantastic. Like, just there's so much fury behind it. And he has almost like this kind of like almost like poetic kind of style where like he weaves in between these like scorched earth like screams, but then there's like bits of like almost spoken word type passages where he almost becomes like a preacher of some sort. Like, when I was listening to this, I was thinking like he's got a bit of that kind of Neil Fallon of Clutch.
I was literally thinking in the background, he's the Neil Fallon of hardcore.
Yeah, totally. That's what I was getting as well. Like, you can't help but be captured by everything that he's saying. And then the rest goes, the same goes for the rest of the band, to be honest. It's absolutely nuts. This is album 2 and 30 years later, because it sounds like they've never been away. Like, they have only gotten tighter and more focused. They sound like this should be like album 7 or album 8. Like, it has that level of quality and
this is an album that a band wanted to do, as opposed to a band going through the motions of, well, they're going to expect us to record an album now that we've done this live thing, so let's try to. This kind of feels like people that want to make a statement, want to record something. And it's infectious all the way through because of that energy is palpable.
Yeah. There's bands that are still going from that late 90s era that don't sound as good as this. Like, and it's even more impressive that the drummer Dave Rosenberg has actually taken on most of the songwriting, like learning the guitar in between the last album and now, and just like coming up with new stuff that's not only, you know, keeping faithful to the original sound, but in a lot of ways is an elevation of that as well. I think a lot of the guitar work on here is more memorable than before, and it's that more kind of almost more riff centric sound that it just sticks with you even more. Hits so much harder. Not to mention, like, his drum parts are fucking killer as well. He's got a really cool kind of natural groove to his playing, but can easily switch into something more wild and furious whenever he wants. Like, I thought this was great. But I will say it's directly within my wheelhouse as well at the same time. Like, I grew up listening to...
they might as well call this album Deadguy.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. So it does hit a kind of nostalgic note with me because I've been listening to it for so long. But that being said, I think you can't deny, like, how good this is, regardless of, like, when you got into hardcore or what you like. I think there's still levels to this game, and Deadguy have just returned with an album that absolutely rips. Like, fantastic release. What about yourself as a newcomer to Deadguy? What did you think?
Yeah, Deadguy with near Dave travel services. When you arrive at Dave's house and he's like that, fuck off. What are you here for? So like, I could tell from their sound that they were a bit older.
Yeah.
Same way, like, I was thinking about when we reviewed the Limit album, which is always on my mind. And we were listening to that for the first time and we're like, right, like, I know this is saying debut, but right, these guys have been doing something else, because you could just tell there was a like, it was just something in the songwriting which was just like, oh, these guys have been doing it for years, and it turns out actually, collectively, I think everyone that was in that band is older than Deadguy. So all right. But like, so that was what sprung to my mind, but more the idea of this was a Relapse release. I couldn't, when I did my very quick research, which if I just read the PR, I wouldn't have to do so much, honestly. But I was like, right, so this is the first thing out in Relapse, which made me think, right, they've been going for a wee while, and this is Relapse saying, here we go. Makes more sense that they had a very prominent, influential album a while ago, and Relapse is like, we'll take you on, we'll kind of put your stuff out. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Gengistron, that way, where Gengistron hadn't done anything in like 13 years. And then we're like, we need a new album to come out. Relapse were like, come here. We've got you. It's fine. Like, I was like, I'm more impressed now with the detail about how much time has been between releases. I would be super curious to know if any of the band have been off playing in other bands, or if they did literally go, right, we've done what we wanted to do with the band. It's been one album. We're not going to top that. So, damn tools get real jobs. I would be curious, but not so curious that I would spend any huge amount of time after this video searching that, which I'm sure is available on the internet. The big thing for me was the flow of the album, the precision, the authenticity, and the vibe. This album is very much, for me, vibe album. Like, I shove it on, similar to something else I mentioned already tonight on a different review. Like, that just made me angry at things. I felt myself like kind of going like that way, where like you hear an unreasonable person make a reasonable argument, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, fucking yes, like he said it. You know, I kind of felt that way all through this album, like that kind of preacher mentality. I think is right. I think that way where like you get enraptured by the cadence of the vocals to the point where you're like, let's march on them now. It's like, oh yeah, let's protest it. Like, you could feel yourself being like wrapped up in it. It does make a bit of sense now that you've mentioned about the drummer writing the guitar parts. There are whole sections here where the guitars get a wee bit kind of jingle jangly, and the drums are doing things where it kind of feels. Dillinger were really good at that, where like you get a section where like the guitars would start like just fucking around, and the drummer's like, "Oh, I've got you." So like the drummer would just like slot in behind. Everything is fucking tight on this release, like super tight. So as a result, when the guitars decide to go like off piste and less kind of thrash hardcore punk heavy and try and go a bit noise rock or whatever, the drums are right in there and doing something kind of colourful to accentuate what's being played. It sounds brilliant. Production on this is and like it's just alive. This is the art. Like, these are the bands, and this is the argument for why spending too much time moving every bass drum hit to exactly on the beat, strips the life from an album.
If I was in a band, this is exactly how I want my album to sound. Like, this
of course, like
give me this.
Yeah. How do you want your album to sound? Awesome. Okay, right. Go on and play. Here we go. I get. This is why we love Jakob Bredel so much, because he does the. You see videos of me, just lets guys go in there and he's like, let's do it live, god damn it.
Yeah.
And that comes through, and as a result, every production kind of sounds in keeping with the band. That's what I get with Deadguy here. This just feels like live and vibrant and colourful and punchy, and like the album has something to say. Even if I wasn't fully aware of what the messaging was, I felt it in my bones that I was gravitated towards it. The flow on the album is just fucking impeccable. They get playful, but not too playful. They go a little bit more metally at times, but not too much where it distracts from the core sound of the band. There are times that reminded me a little bit of like the vocal intensity and kind of almost throat grabbiness reminded me a little bit of Henry Rollins, like from the 90s, where like Rollins was at, they were Rollins band just spitting fucking fire, like on everything. There's a bit of that in there as well, where it just kind of it like feels like it has something to say. I'm going to keep coming back to that, and it's something I kind of want to hear, even if I didn't know I wanted to hear it beforehand. And it keeps you going. Like the beauty of this is that every track has rewarding elements. I think you mentioned it when you were speaking a little earlier there, that they don't wait to build up
Yeah.
to give you the riff that you're wanting. They will just give you it, like, and then below that you want again. Okay, here we go. And what about at the end? That they don't wait for the payoff. They understand that sometimes when all you've got is 2 minutes, give them the payoff and give them it more than once. It's a really, really, really well put together album. Super fucking confident, really easy to listen to, whilst at the same time, like, angsty as fuck. And I will say a marvel for a band who, from what you've just told me, it appears to have been off the grid for 30 years. Doesn't sound it. Like, it sounds as vibrant, as vital, as relevant, and is in keeping with the era that they're from, without sounding like old men pick up. Like, you want to depress yourself, listen to that last Motley Crue EP. Holy fucking shit. And you think, like, why are we even doing this? I listen to Deadguy and I go, this is why we're doing this. That's the rub, as they say. So
I will just say the final thing, the last track, Wax Princess.
Yes.
I was listening to it on my.
Did you think? I thought that like my YouTube app was open or something. I thought there was an ad coming in. I was like, take my headphone and go, what the fuck is going on?
I like scrambled to start closing windows on my laptop because I thought some like shifty fucking pop-up had came on my work laptop and the Trojan horse had fucking infected it. It's like, what the hell is that? It's some sort of weird
you're making
AI.
1995 references here, Trojan horses and shit like that.
Showing my age as well. Like some mad AI voice comes into it. Absolutely shit myself when it happened. Okay, final thing. Scores for the return of Deadguy. This is like authentic as it gets from the good old days, but also delivered with like a 2025 punch in the face. Great stuff. 4.5 for me, like a high scorer. Really enjoyed this album. Would highly recommend you check it out. What are you thinking?
We are flipping the script tonight. I'm coming in at a 4. I really liked this album. Thought it was great. Eager to actually go back and check out that debut now. Yeah,
it's worth a listen. Yeah. Nice one. Deadguy and Near Death Travel Services out on June 27th via Relapse Records. Check out the links to the band, pre-order some of the singles, have a listen, see what you think. Happy your thoughts on it. That is our review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.